I got Rich Walker. He's an entrepreneur, but he's been an entrepreneur for a very long time. Despite not being an old guy, he's been doing this just like me as a kid. So I really connect with that. Entrepreneur, father, husband, a lot of interesting things about him. So him and I met because we're both members of EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and his forum came to my house recently while they were on a retreat in South Florida, and we did some cool stuff together. We worked out, we did some breath work. I imagine we did that because I do that with a lot of groups.
Yeah.
We got in the cold plunge, went in the hot tub, and just hung out and got to know each other. And he's one of those guys that I connected with, had a great conversation. Then we had a follow-up phone call, and I was like, man, you've told me too many interesting things. You got to be on the podcast. I want my friends to hear about you and learn from your stories. So I got a bunch of questions and we're going to jump into it. Thanks for being here, Rich.
Man, I'm proud to be here. I love the connection we made, and it's an honor. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. All right. You got a car back there. You're a big car guy?
I do. I love cars. So if I'll step aside, everybody can see. This is real. This is not virtual background. I had a picture of my car taken, which is a Volvo XC90, and a company turned it into metal artwork. So the outline shape, and then I lined it with LED lights to show it up. And I just wanted something that stood out. It was a little bit different because every year I changed my background a little bit. And I love this thing. It's just one of my favorite cars of all time.
Any aspirational car you'd like to buy in the future?
Too many, man. My dream house starts with a 9 car garage. Forget the rest of the house.
That's
But
funny.
the one car I really want is some Aston Martin. I love the Vantage. There's so many of them that are just gorgeous cars. It's not always about the speed. It's really about the aesthetic, the look and the feel of it. So yeah.
I've got a friend. He was on the podcast. I got his book back there. He sold his movie rights recently. He was in Afghanistan. He's a Air Force Special Forces guy, and he got blown up. His Humvee got completely blown up. Just everything's gone. A few fingers left, no ears, rough. And so he was on the podcast, flew him down here, came to speak to our EO chapter on Memorial Day. I think it was last year. Beautiful talk. And then built a relationship with him, flew out. I spent some time at his with him in Colorado. And that guy built not only, well, Tunnels for Towers built him an amazing home out on a beautiful range, but then he has a car exhibit, I'd call it. And I think he has 9 or 10 or 12 like hot rods and old cars he gets worked on. And yeah, that guy's living the dream despite what he went through. He's got that. He's got a whole like barn full of amazing cars in there. So
I've
hopefully,
been fortunate to have a few of my dream cars. I went to USC for college, and my senior year, a kid would park a brand new BMW M3 outside of my apartment every day. Gorgeous techno violet, purple, matching rims, everything. Look, I was poor, man. I couldn't afford anything. And I looked at that car every day saying, I'm going to have this car. It only took a year and a half. And I got an electric blue one and I kept it for 4 years, drove the heck out of it. I loved that car.
that's
So I've been
awesome.
fortunate to get a few of my dream cars under belt.
Good. So let's talk about it. You became an entrepreneur at 12 years old. What were you doing at that age, and why did you become an entrepreneur so early?
Well, I have one of those stories. When I was 5, my father was well, he was a minister, left the church and became a drug addict. And we
Usually
became
goes the other way.
right. You'd expect, but I mean, unfortunately for him, he grew up in this church, and when he fell out of favor with it, he lost his entire identity, and he felt like, well, I'm going to go to hell, so I'm going to go to hell here on earth first, and just try to get rid of pain. And he did that for 3 years and became a substance abuse counselor, so he redeemed himself. But that experience thrust us into welfare, into moving every year of my life, into bad relationships my mom formed just to try to survive. All sorts of chaos happened. And the real story is that when I was 8, I went to a friend's house and he had one of those radio controlled cars that cost $300 back in the 80s. And I wanted it so badly. I loved cars as a kid, right? And I said, I'm going to get one of these. My, of course, couldn't afford it. So I started saving up my money, and it took me 4 years to save up the $300. Well, the summer before I bought it, my neighbor came out with his son and gave us what we called water weenies. If you've seen surgical tubing, Take a length of surgical tube, put a pen tip in one end, tie a knot in the other, fill it up with a garden hose, and it squirts 30 feet. So before Super Soaker, what were your options? Grab the hose, water balloons, or little squirt guns that went 5 feet. Suddenly, this water weenie shoots 30 feet. You dominated the neighborhood. And at the end of that day, the father took back the water weenies, and I said, "Hey, other kids want this, and I see you have 25, or you have a reel of tubing in your shed. Can I buy it from you?" It's 25 feet. So I bought it. I broke every pen in my house and started cutting lengths of these tubes and building water weenies. Well, within 2 weeks, I sold out and had like 50 or $60. So I went back and bought another 25 feet and another 25 feet. And I earned the money I needed to buy the car. My uncle saw this because I took it to the campground when we went to see him, and I got every kid in the campground to buy one. And he was like, "Rich, next year I run the 4th of July ceremonies at a regional park in Southern California. Why don't you come here and sell water weenies?" I'm like, "Great idea." Well, I buy my car, 9 months go by. My mom reminds me, "Hey, this event's coming up. Do you want to do it or not?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So I go to my neighbor again. "How much for 1,000 feet of tubing?" Guess what? $300. But I didn't have $300. I bought a car. So I got kind of clever and I said, "Hey, your son's birthday is coming up. He loves my car. Would you barter with me? Would you give me the 1,000 feet for the car? And I'll give you everything I've got." He did it. Honestly, the guy's an angel. And I wish I could find him and thank him because he did it. I then wrote a letter to the Scripto pen company and said, "I'm doing a project. I need sample pen tips. Would you send me some?" They sent me a box of 5,000 pen tips absolutely free. So now I had all the supplies, went to town cutting lengths. My brother helped me, showed up on 4th of July, started selling by 7 a.m. It was already 100 degrees, sold out by 1 p.m. And in that single day time, after paying for dinner for everybody, paying my brother a fee to help me, I put in my pocket over $1,100 in one day.
Man,
And that
how old were
enabled me to
you?
buy, I was 12. I was about to turn 13, but I was still 12. And that enabled me to buy my first car when I turned 16, years later.
Did you, growing up, did you always have that in your back pocket? Were you always thinking, yeah, I did that. That one day I made so much money. Did that give you something going forward?
On that actual day, everybody looked at me and said, "Well, Rich, what are you going to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I'm going to become a millionaire by age 23." So I would say, yes, it gave me this kind of confidence that, well, I mean, here was the realization, Joel. If you do something that people like, they'll pay you for it. I mean, I'd never seen that before. And I was so enamored with that concept of you can give people things they want and they'll pay you for it and you can make money. So I just was struck like I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And I knew that all the way through my life, even though I went to school, went to college thinking I'm going to be an engineer, graduated college, got a job. I did all these things that were opposite of that. I was also at the same time starting businesses and trying things because I just knew I needed to be an entrepreneur and solve problems that would earn money and grow. So
Did you
yeah, I would
finish,
say,
did you
go
finish
ahead.
school as an entrepreneur, as an engineer?
No, my freshman year of engineering, I realized it wasn't for me and I switched to the business school. So I actually got my degree in finance.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, I finished all 4 years.
So childhood was a bit rough with your dad making these changes, maybe not making a lot of money. And you told me before we started recording that you moved 33 times. How were you even stable enough to finish college?
You know, you move every year of college because of roommates and what you need. I think the stability came from my mom. So my parents divorced when I was 5. And one of the things that she started doing, I mean, imagine this woman, she had 3 little kids, no income capability, like didn't know how to have a job, never had one, started doing an illegal daycare in our house with 13 kids around the neighborhood to make ends meet. We had a family move in to help pay for things. She was scrappy. Like she came from a farm. She would just make things happen. So she started reading books and learning how to build herself and turn into a better person. And every step of the way, life got better and better and better. I think it helped that she married my stepfather because he did okay in the hotel business and we saw our lives improve. And while she was reading those books, she was sharing the stories and the lessons with my brother and I. So by age 12, I already had an identity. I already knew who I was and I already had a sense of self. And in fact, around age 12, I developed a four-step methodology for how to change myself into becoming the person I wanted.
At
So by the time I
12,
was
where'd you learn that from? What video, what record, what book was she showing you?
She was reading, I didn't read the books, frankly. She was just sharing the stories of the book. She was reading Dr. Wayne Dyer, like Pull
Yeah,
Your Own Strings. I don't know the other authors, but like Getting to Yes and Codependent No More and all these types of books to help her with her relationships and personal development. So we would do people watching, for example. And whether we were right or wrong about our analysis, because we never talked to the person, she would point things out and say, see how this guy's walking? He's walking to try to get noticed because he doesn't think he's being noticed. Or
mm,
look at this person. He's really tall, but he's hunched over. He doesn't feel confident to stand up proud and strong. And we would just do this kind of people watching and assess what makes somebody who they are
that's
and what
great.
behaviors are they exhibiting that help communicate, I don't know, good or bad. You also have to imagine, and you probably know this too because of your background, maybe more so than me, frankly. When you live in a bad neighborhood where there's dangerous people, when you live with an abusive guy, a boyfriend of my mom's, when you change schools every year of your life, you start to read people really, really well. You know good and bad very fast. So I think that kind of chaos spurred in me a sense of my own survival as well as stability. And in fact, when I was in high school, I was the guy who just kind of didn't care if you liked me or not. I had plenty of friends. I wasn't popular, but I had friends. I played sports. I was in water polo, but I would just do things differently just because I just didn't want to be like the norm. I would tie my shoes upside down if it took that to stand out.
That's funny.
So yeah, I guess that's kind of the answer. The stability comes from my mom, the
Hmm.
lessons I've had, and just wanting to be the best I can be throughout my life.
And your mom and you, 23 years ago, founded a company, Quick, with an exclamation point at the end, and you've sold millions of dollars in services, and you've grown this really nicely. Talk about that. I mean, how did your mom become your business partner?
So my mom, she had become a consultant and a computer trainer, software trainer, in the 90s while I was working and learning technology with other companies. I worked at Arthur Andersen. I was a tech consultant. And I was, what's funny is like she was running her own business, but totally undercharging for her capabilities. And for years, I would push her to charge more and more. From 25 an hour, got her all the way up to 125 an hour. And again, it took years for her to get that confidence to do that. In 1999, I left working for another company to become independent contractor, and I started working with her, and we formed the company called Efficient Technology Inc. That's actually our true company name.
Hmm.
And even though we didn't incorporate in 99, that's really when we started. So it's more than 23 years. But then I left her with that business to become a financial advisor. And when I became a financial advisor, I saw all of the inefficiency that we faced. And one of which was I had to fill out forms for my clients. So imagine you work so hard to earn somebody's trust and respect, and you get them to say, yes, I'll transfer money and you can manage it. And here's a bunch of paperwork to fill out.
Hmm.
Terrible experience. So I built software that would fill out the forms. And for 6 months, I kept turning people away who heard about it or saw the clean paperwork. I mean, imagine 2001, they're like, Rich, how did you get this perfectly typed form? I was like, oh, I just built this thing. And they're like, give it to me. I hate filling out forms.
You were only using it for yourself and your own clients?
Yeah. It was look, I built like 12 different technologies to run my business.
Hmm.
I built some really sophisticated things that I thought people would be interested in, but the mundane thing is what they cared about. And so for time and time again, I had said no to people. Somebody who my mom and I had worked with, who was a top professional in our industry, a top financial advisor, told her about the software, and she was like, "Rich, I will buy that." And hearing that from her was the best validation in the world. Here's somebody who really understands the business. She wanted it. So I said, well, I guess we got to do this. So I went to my mom and said, let's do this together and let's see what happens. So we did our first install February 11, 2002. This person's assistant, full time, 40 hours a week, Joel, handwriting forms,
Wow.
got our software. 2 weeks later, called up practically in tears. She says, you're going to change my life. I'm only putting in 4 hours a week of handwriting forms or working on forms. And she went on to become a financial advisor and the VP of
Oh,
marketing. I mean, it's awesome that she had this incredible career.
the assistant?
The assistant, yeah. Yes. I mean, she was freed up. And I take no credit for her hard work, but I gave her the freedom to go do that hard work. And so my mom and I realized we have something here. And the other thing is, I was always looking for how to do my best work. Every company I worked for, I was very interested in what drives the culture of the company. So I was looking at what drives me. And when my mom and I said, let's do this together, one of the things that really, really works is that somehow she and I engender trust very quickly when we meet with people. When we're consultants, we immediately became the guide, not trying to sell them anything, just helping. And we felt like, you know what, no matter what we do together, we're always going to give people excellent service and they're going to trust us and like working with us. So it doesn't even matter what it is we do. But now we had this catalyst, this software, and we said, this is what we should do. So, I mean, that's how it started. It was much longer road because we're bootstrapped. We did everything wrong, my friend.
Mhm. And but you stuck to the world you were already in, the finance, right? The financial planners and those sort of
Yeah.
things. So that had to help open doors, right?
It does. In fact, it still does. When I can tell somebody I was a financial advisor, I understand your pain and I speak the same language, having that background and that niche has been really powerful for us. Thankfully, we're at a stage now where we are the dominant player in this space. So we're going more horizontal across financial services into banking, lending, more insurance and things like that. But still, coming from this background, I think it helps tremendously at a personal level when I meet with people.
And how'd you start? Okay, so you said you had a friend and she needed these services and you got her. That's a client. How'd you get the next client and the next client? How'd you get to where you are today where you have these big firms using you?
Oh man. So my mom and I were so dumb, so naive. We said, okay, we will go out and get 1,000 users paying us 150 a year. That's 150,000. We'll each take 50,000 as income and put 50,000 back into the business. That shouldn't be hard with software, 1,000 users, right? In year one, we got six total users because you start to realize things don't work. Well, we want to distribute the software. You got to have a website. You want people to come buy it. You have to do credit card processing. These things just were not simple back then. So we struggled really, really hard. We did consulting along the way to pay the bills. In year two, we got to, I think, 76, 77 users. So we started to realize this is not working the way that we thought. And at the same time, I realized somebody who had joined my company had kind of planted the seed, but we realized we could take the core engine of our product out and sell it directly to big customers as an engine to drive their own processes. So instead of you buy my turnkey product, I'll give you an API, just the component you need to go do it yourself within your own environment. Joel, my first customer was MassMutual with 5,500 users.
Wow.
I attribute a lot of this to luck and timing, but also having a product that nobody in the market had and they wanted. And I saw this sale. I'm like, oh man, I make one sale for 5,500 users versus 5,500 independent sales. I know what I'm doing now. And so we went out to start doing that. Pardon me. We signed a couple of other customers up. Frankly, the tactic was I wrote handwritten letters to 35 companies, all of whom were advertising to attract advisors to their firm. And I felt like these are all people who are actively trying to solve a problem that we can help solve. And two of those customers responded, and we were able to sign them with deals.
Wow.
So you'd think I would do that campaign again and again and again, and I never did it again.
Why?
We got busy. We started implementing, and then we had different ideas of how sales should work. We started going to conferences and shows. And I mean, look, the hard road that we were on is selling a technical product in a business to business enterprise manner is a long road. My sales cycle is 9 to 12 months most of the time.
Yeah.
And then it takes another 6 to 12 months for them to fully ramp up or onboard and then ramp up. So you don't see the revenue very fast and you starve. But we did that enough times over a long enough period that we just kept growing and growing and growing. And what we didn't realize that turned into our favor is that when a customer implements your technology into their architecture, it's the equivalent of putting the plumbing in the concrete at the
Yeah.
foundation of your house.
It's sticky.
It's sticky. We have only lost customers for two reasons. They've gone out of business or they got acquired.
Mm.
Otherwise, I still have MassMutual as my customer.
That's amazing. So it's such a recurring revenue model.
It's an annuity stream. Yeah.
Yeah,
And my belief is that as a business owner, you have to kind of think of a few things. One is, how do you put yourself out of business over time? Because somebody will do it to you if you don't. So I'm always reinventing our product. We're going through an evolutionary change right now, in fact. It's our fourth one. Second, you have to kill them with kindness. You have to always provide the best support so that that's not the reason they leave you. And then so the innovation and the support, and then I think having fair pricing. And one of the things that's coming up a lot lately with artificial intelligence is what is the value of software now? I mean, honestly, Joel, this might take a little bit of work, but you could go onto an AI and start developing software yourself without any coding background.
I've seen it. You just tell it and it starts writing the code on the side there.
Yeah. So what's the value of the software now? And a friend of mine who's an AI expert pointed this out. He said, look, SaaS has stage one cancer. It's like it's dying. SaaS meaning software as a service. That's my business model. He said, but the real thing, what customers want is they want to pay for the result. So if you align your pricing with the result you're delivering, regardless what the user experience is like, you're gonna hit with them. We've been priced that way for 15 years.
Wow. Have you, because you have a business that has steady income, it's you know what the numbers will be next year if you don't sell anything else, right? It's so consistent. Isn't that a big target to be acquired? I mean, are people knocking at the door?
Every year,
Mm.
every year. I think it's always a threat. In fact, I was talking to somebody, not really to sell my company. She just happens to be an investor. And we were talking, and I said, "Yeah, you know what? My revenue is over 99% recurring, 91% on contract, annual contract, 8% services based on those contracts." She's like, "Stop, stop. That is crack cocaine to
Yeah,
somebody like me." I look, I know we have value. The thing is, the value I'm delivering to my market, to my customers, I don't want that destroyed. The wealth management space, in terms of opening accounts and generating revenue, depends on forms being filled out. We are the provider. And if some big company came in and said, we're going to buy you because we love your tech and we can roll it out to 1,000 other customers in our industry, but forget this wealth management space, what would I be doing to all my customers? So I'm cautious about that because we have built something really important. But I also, frankly, Joel, we're on the precipice of a massive growth right now. So I don't want to give it up yet. I mean,
yeah,
the horse is just starting to gallop. Let's
yeah,
go.
yeah. And that's what you're talking about horizontally, getting into other parts.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. We are, I don't want to disclose publicly, but we are in the midst of some things that are going to change our revenue dramatically
good.
in terms of up growth. We're at that inflection point, if you will, and we've made this investment. In fact, we were talking about what we've done. So, bootstrapped company, I've never taken on outside money, which means I've never had outside influence take me off course. What we have done, I don't know if this is going to come across right, but what we have done is impossible if you had taken on outside money.
Oh yeah,
And so that means we've done the impossible and now we can scale it and people are going to look at us and go, how did you do that?
yeah.
And it's because we suffered by not having the money for so many years. I mean, what was it? First 12 years of this business, I was in debt.
Mm,
I, I didn't buy my house until 14 years into this business. And I sold my dream car to start this business. And I cashed out my 401k. And I had no income for all these years I left a multi six-figure income to start this business. So I have just given up all sorts of things to put effort into this. And that's why it's impossible. Who would choose to do that except a
yeah.
crazy person like me?
You're right. So you don't have the outside influence, but you do have a business partner that used to wipe your butt. So how does it work with your mom? I mean, who's the boss? You tell her what to do, she tells you what to do.
Oh my gosh, we are such good friends. We are best friends in life, which is amazing thing to say as a parent child. The truth is, on day one, when we said let's do this together, I said let's put it in writing. I said, look, family's always going to be first, Mom. I love you. I'll always side with you, but let's just put it in writing so we're clear about who's doing what, who has what authority. And then what we did is we said, let's separate duties in a way. So I am in charge of product because it's my vision, and I'm allowed to go choose what product to build for the market. But she's in charge of finance. So if she doesn't want to fund it and doesn't believe in it, she can hold the purse strings, right? And so we kind of separated our duties in that way to have different levels of authority. I think the second thing, though, is that I don't look at this as a dictatorship. We're a highly collaborative environment to work in. And I want to hear everybody's perspective and opinions. I might have to make the final choice as CEO, but I love to get the input from everybody so that can make the best decision, which also says underlying all this is leave your ego out of this.
Mhm.
So yeah, she and I mean, look, one of my proudest accomplishments is I've retired her.
Hmm.
So she's still on the board of directors. We talk all the time about the business. She's super excited about it. She actually recently came back to start doing special projects because she was bored and wanted to have some fun. But I mean, she trusts me. I've been driving this for a long time, and she trusts me.
That's unique. You know, you have to wonder how many mother-son businesses have been around for 23 years and grown into millions of dollars. That's probably, you're in a little tiny minority.
I never think about that, but you're right. I mean, I don't know. I don't think about the weight or the accomplishment of 23 years other than I've lived that journey and I'm super excited for the future. But you're right. I talk to people and they're like, most companies go out of business in the first year, if not the first three.
Yeah,
I mean, frankly, we should have shut it down 3 times.
good thing you didn't. So is your father still alive?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually moved him out to Austin, near me. We have a very different relationship. I would not call it a prototypical father-son relationship. He is my father biologically. We're friends, um, and I care for him. In fact, he helps do work on my podcast every week, so he's engaged and he's telling me, he's like, "Man, listening to your podcast every week, I'm learning more about you than I've realized." He's just a very interesting person. He's very kept to himself and happy with his life, and yeah, doesn't ask for much.
How has it shaped you with your father, the way you grew up and his absence and the issues he went through as a father? Because you've got 3 kids, right?
Oh yeah. That is a really important topic to me. Um, I had a stepfather for several years of my life, but he never told us he loved us. And I knew he did, but never could articulate that. He was also the kind of a tyrant leader. So he would just tell us and bark orders. And there were so many weekends, Joel, that all we did was yard work, never got to play. I'm glad for that in a way because it taught me hard work. It taught me what it means to work with your hands and things like that. But I felt like I was lacking a father figure my whole life. And I think my dad came to one of my water polo games in all of high school, and I played for 3 years. So I just kind of missed that. And as a father, I don't know if I have a role model to model off of, but I have my instincts and I have my beliefs about what it means to be a father. And I look to people like you and I look to other people who have been successful in being a parent, and I always take notes and ideas from that. But I want to be the best example I can be for my boys.
But you
So
did have a role model because I don't know that role models, I guess I'd have to look up the definition, have to be exactly what we want to be like. A role model could be like, okay, I don't want to be that way in
it's
this
true.
part. So
No, that's
there, I'm sure
true.
there are things that you say, my dad wouldn't have gone to this. Here I am at my kid's game. That's got to make you feel good.
Yeah. An interesting thing. My mentor said this to me. He said, your father wasn't part of your life, but you know what? He didn't do anything to screw up your life either.
Hmm.
He didn't give you bad habits. He didn't,
Hmm.
mess with you. He didn't do anything to harm you.
Yeah.
That was a really good realization in my teens to hear that. So you're right. And actually, when I say a role model, I meant like the single father figure, but I've had multiple.
Yeah.
My Uncle Steve is one of the best fathers to me. And I look at him and I've seen him have the best kindness towards people. He always treats people with such respect and candor and joy. And I love that about him. And he's a good old boy. I mean, he's out in nature all the time, working he works a farm sometimes. I mean, just a very different person. I guess to your point, I wanted somebody to be the business example to me, which is what my mentor was. He was the IBM guy who started his own business and was very successful. So you're right. I think what you can learn is what not to do.
Hmm.
So I'm not gonna not be present for my boys. And in fact, I made a very strong choice that when my first son arrived, I would quit working 80-hour weeks and only work 35-hour weeks. It was exceptionally hard to do. I did it though. I mean, I did it on day one. And then I felt guilt. I felt shame. Like I'm not putting in twice as much work. And then you know what happened? I started delegating and my company started growing. And I suddenly realized, why didn't I do this years ago? I should have
Yep.
had kids so much earlier.
Yeah, delegation is amazing. It's tough for a lot of entrepreneurs to let go, but good things that life set you up in a way that you kind of had to make that decision. So speaking of choices, you chose to work less and pay more attention to your family. What was the choice of the wife that you have? What was that like for you, and what has it meant for you?
So, I think a lot of us, I'm a hopeful romantic, and I think a lot of us think, oh, I'm going to fall in love in high school and marry my high school sweetheart. I went down that road, and that didn't work. That didn't work at all. And I don't want to go too far into depth just in public because I still respect her, et cetera. But um, I mean, here's the thing. I had such a broken childhood, and I saw my mother in such difficult situations. I took on the white knight syndrome. I
Mm,
wanted to save girls. And I didn't realize I was trying to save my mom or my sister this whole time. I was trying to save girls, I thought. And so through my 20s, I kept getting into relationships where I was abused emotionally, not physically. I'm still a guy. That's hard to do, but
you're a big guy.
definitely emotionally. And then it took me years to unwind that damage, by the way. So I got engaged when I was 21, again when I was 25, and then I found somebody serious when I was 28, and we stayed together for several years. But then we realized we were just like roommates. It was just too easy. There was no friction, there was no spark. And so she broke it off with me, which was the right thing to do, hard to do. And so I'm 32, 33, whatever in my life, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna wait. I mean, it took me about a year to come to this conclusion, but I finally said, I'm an amazing person. I have a lot to give to somebody. So I'm going to wait until I find the amazing person who has a lot to give to me. And I kid you not, it was only 3 weeks later I met my wife.
It's
I mean,
funny
I
how that
think it's
works.
that, yeah, it's that becoming when you become what you're truly meant to be and you acknowledge it. It sounds arrogant, like, oh, I'm an amazing person. You should like me, right? But when you can say that to yourself and feel it, you open yourself up to the world again. And that's what happened. We met online. We started talking on the phone for 3 weeks. We finally met in person. And the moment I met her in person, I saw my entire future flash in front of my eyes. I kid you not. I saw us getting married, having a house, having kids. Just like when you get in a car crash, you see your entire past, right? And I knew it. I mean, I just knew it. But it wasn't easy. She didn't know it. And then she broke up with me after 3 months because I was way too intense and she wasn't ready for a relationship. But when we got back together a month later, because we said, let's take a 1 month hiatus, zero contact, nothing. And when she called me after day 33, and I felt like I love the story because I felt like Dumb and Dumber when he's asking, is there one in a million chance? And I was just like, do you see a chance for us? And she's like, well, yeah, I do actually. I'm like, awesome, there's a chance.
So you're
Yay.
saying there's a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we, took it slow and let it evolve and grow. And I just knew I had met my soulmate. And the irony is this: she's been through a lot, which I'm not going to disclose. I'll tell you a few things. She's from South Africa. She moved to America. She had a bad marriage. She has had a lot of different challenges in her life. She's moved like 15, 17 times herself. And so what we realized was we were built for each other. Had we met earlier, we hadn't learned enough lessons to be right for each other. But the lessons we've learned make us so compatible, so right for each other. And it's kind of funny. You know how girls like to test guys, especially when they're young? She put me through every single test, but I had
Mm.
seen them all before, Joel.
Yeah. You
I
had
was like,
experience.
okay, I know what to do with this one. No problem. So yeah.
Interesting. And what about that intensity that got you guys to break up after a few weeks? Did you cool that down? How's that been in your life?
Man, I run 100 miles an hour into walls. You're not going to stop me from being enthusiastic about what I'm excited about. I just say that we're tempered. Like she understands me. She knows how I am. I know how she is. And one of the things that makes a great relationship is compatible communication.
Hmm.
And like my first fiance, her stated belief was we did not have a healthy relationship unless we yelled at each other.
Mm.
That is not me. I don't yell at people. My wife and I have had, I think, two disagreements in 16 years. And the very first one, she was getting getting kind of angry or whatever. And I stopped. I said, I'm going for a walk. I'm coming back in 30 minutes. I came back and I said, look, I don't care what we're disagreed upon. I don't care who's right or wrong. You can never use anger towards me, and I can never use anger towards you. We cannot harm each other in our relationship. Let's work through the details. We still don't know what we were fighting about. Who, maybe it was taking out the trash. I mean, just we don't know. So I think that having that compatible communication and tempering each other with the right offsets, because she looks at herself, I don't mean to speak on her behalf, but she's like, no other guy would deal with me. Because she's funny. I mean, she's terribly funny. She's a
That's
cartoon character.
great that you guys have figured this out, that you had that frame of mind to not get caught up in the argument and fight and build it up. And then pretty soon you're blowing up and saying things that 16 years later, it'll still affect your marriage.
Yeah. Well, that comes from all the other fights with the first one, because we did have
Mm.
yelling fights. Joel, she would yell so much, I had to find ways to stop it. And at one point, I looked at her and yelled at her, so what if dinosaurs drove cars? And it was just so out of left field. Like, what the heck does that mean? She started laughing and it diffused the whole situation. I was just looking for a life raft. I just wanted out of the situation. And I would throw stupid, crazy things together and try to make it work. Eventually that stopped working.
So
But,
if a guy had, or a girl, it could go either way, but if you had low self-esteem and you would have stayed in that relationship, who knows what your life would be like today? Was that the difference? Once you had a few breakups and you started appreciating yourself and valuing yourself more, is that what helped?
reading books, I actually read Codependent No More as well, because I was in a codependent type of relationship. Being a white knight trying to save somebody means you're always trying to save somebody. And there's a couple of analogies I learned about that. If you try to save a cat that's drowning in your pool, you are going to get scratched. If you want to be the life raft for somebody who's going through rapids, you're going to go through the rapids. So stop doing those things.
Yeah.
And that was a hard thing. I think it was actually dating a girl shortly after I broke up with my fiance that really woke me up. She was a little bit older than me, a few years older. And I just had this modality of giving somebody pity because that's what I was trained to do with this first girl. And she had some sad story and I gave her pity. And she looked at me, she's like, don't pity me. I don't want that from you.
Mm.
And it woke me up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this behavior I have. So I started working on me. Honestly, it was around age 26, 27 when I said, I'm going to become the right person for the right person. So what does that mean? And I created an emotional cocoon around myself. And I started testing all of my beliefs. And I started asking myself, is this the right belief for me? Does this empower me to be the person I want to be? Does this give me the confidence to be a father someday? And even though I didn't necessarily want kids, I wasn't on that path, I just knew if I'm going to get to that point, if I'm going to be a leader of people, if I'm going to be a leader of my family, if I'm going to be a great husband, maybe the best husband possible, if I'm going to be the best father possible, what do I believe and stand for? And it took me about 7 years, 6.5, 7 years of going through this process. And I still dated. I was still in a relationship. That's the kind of lukewarm one that we realized we were just being roommates because I wasn't emotionally available to it. I started writing poetry, and there's a poem that is the cracking of that shell, that cocoon, because I was finally realizing I am the person I want to be, and I broke through. So by age 33, 34, I had established the foundation of who I am. And that has given me the utmost confidence, the utmost confidence. You cannot change me with your opinion. You cannot offend me. You can't do anything to me. I mean, nobody can. It's my choice.
Hmm.
And even if you say, oh, Rich, I've analyzed this and I see this behavior and this pattern, this means you're this, it's up to me to choose what I believe about that. And I know who I am. And it's because of that process. So I don't know if that's the right answer to your question,
Yeah.
but
Well, and what, well, even if it wasn't, you wouldn't care.
no, I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
I
And
just mean,
what,
did I answer it?
yeah, no, I know. What are the books you've written?
So the first book is called It's My Life. I Can Change If I Want to. And it's a four-step methodology of how to change. It's exactly what I've just been describing. It's about understanding your beliefs and changing to beliefs that empower you. And so that's what I started developing at age 12 is that kind of methodology. I really had it down by age 16 and I've used it my entire life. Because even at 16, I saw my girlfriend, my high school sweetheart. and I got jealous. I was across the way. I saw her talking to a boy and I got jealous. And I'm like, why do I feel jealous? I don't like this feeling.
Mm,
How can I change that about myself? And that was one of the ways I started applying this toolbox. The second book is called "It's My Life. I Can Have the Job I Want," and that's because I'm passionate about career development, and I've helped countless people get the jobs they love, and I have a methodology for doing it. So I published that book in 2012.
mm,
But more recently, I decided to give that book away.
mm,
And I took it and put it entirely in ChatGPT as a free custom GPT called Your Job Search Coach.
mm,
It includes the book, all the templates, all the resumes, all the samples, and it helps people understand what is their ideal cultural fit in a company. It'll do mock interviews with them. It'll review their resume. They can upload their resume. It'll review it and give them feedback on how to make it better. And the very first person who used it, which was beta testing for me, went from despondent, like I'm just going to go get a job in a grocery store because I can't get what I want,
mm.
to 5 days later getting a job he wanted. I was blown away, frankly.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And you're giving it away. How could people find it?
So go to ChatGPT. Honestly, that's the best way to go. Go to ChatGPT, look at the custom GPT store, and search for job search coach. You'll see a photo of me. I had browner hair back then, so hopefully still recognizable. The other way is connect with me. I mean, send me a note on LinkedIn. I'm QuickForm CEO and ask for it. I'll send you the link that way too. But I decided to give it away because I just want to help more people. And I didn't want to republish the book because it went out of print and things like that too. So
Mhm.
it's available.
It's awesome. That's a
The first
beautiful.
one's on Amazon. It's My Life I Can Change If I Want to is on Amazon.
Okay. And the other one's on ChatGPT. And what's your podcast about?
It's called The Customer Wins. And I work with business leaders to understand how they help their customers win, how they create the best customer experiences, and really how they overcome challenges of growth in their business. So, one of the premises about humans is that we depend on each other. Like, I literally did not make this shirt that I'm wearing. So, I
Mm,
depend on somebody else to do that. So, therefore, I realized that our fulfillment in life comes from how we help and serve others. So really the premise of the podcast then is to understand how are you serving others to give them the best outcomes that they're looking for by working with you. And then we get to explore that in a number of ways. And I've been learning patterns of how different companies work or how different techniques and customer success matter. And one of the key things I know is that when you when you focus on improving customer experience, there is a high correlation, a direct result to growing your business.
oh yeah. You're more of a philosopher than just an entrepreneur.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I didn't expect so much. I didn't know about the books. You mentioned you had written two books, but I didn't know what they were about, and I did not expect that. I thought they would have been about forms or some
Right?
technology.
I know, I know. The reason it took me 4 years to publish the first book is because I couldn't reconcile inside of myself. How am I this efficiency expert with software and a self-improvement guy? Like, am I a guru or what am
Yeah.
I?
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine helped me realize it. He put me through an exercise, and it took about 3 months to come to conclusion. But I realized at the core of who I am, my sole purpose in life is to empower others to be their best version of themselves. And so you can ask me to do anything in the world. If it doesn't align with that, I won't do it.
Yeah. And the good thing is that in your business, you are helping companies to do that and those finance people to do that. I think something pretty cool that you do is because I love efficiency and I also love not being wasteful, is how many forms are you doing a month? And tell me about the trees you're saving.
Yeah, so we have been tracking all the forms our customers generate. It's actually part of how we deliver value. And we generate well over 1 million forms every month. It's getting close to 1.2 million forms every month. And that translates into saving more than a tree of paper every hour of every day in the year. And then to make that real, I don't know, like 9 or 10 years ago, we partnered up with the Arbor Day Foundation to plant those trees every year. So we actually have given awards to customers saying, look, you saved 1,700 trees or 4,000 trees. And all of our customers can know what kind of impact they're having because we're putting trees in the earth on their behalf because they use our product.
So you're actually doing a double then, because you're saving the tree from getting cut down, but that you're also planting
You know,
that.
that's actually true. That's actually really true. We initially started just by estimating based on how many times forms were generated electronically that we figured for one to one, they didn't have to print one. Because look, here's the other thing. Back in the 15, 10 years ago, whatever, people would order the forms from Fidelity Investments, American Funds, John Hancock, put a stack of forms on their shelf, walk to the shelf to get the form, put it in their printer or handwrite it. And then the form would change and they'd throw out half that stack.
There's
So
another.
yeah, you had shipping. Here's an interesting fact when I think I'll get this right. When American Funds launched a new product, a college plan product, they pre-printed like 9 rail cars of forms. And you just imagine how much paper that is?
Wow.
Pre-printed to distribute to the world. And I know I got some of them and threw them away because they went out as they got changed too fast. The average form's changing at least once a year, some 2 or 3 times a year.
So they have rail cars of it stacked somewhere else
Oh, I'm sure they burned it already.
in addition
Or
to. Wow.
yeah. So it was at first it was just like we will save you from having to print or get off, a mailer. I mean, you would just call the company and they'd FedEx it to you. It was incredible how much expense went into the delivery of forms.
Yeah, so wasteful.
Yeah.
It's like
But
when
then
you
we
go to the
realized,
doctors, I don't know if it happens so much, but I remember going to the doctors years ago and getting a stack of papers. And at the top line, it's my name on every form. So after a while, I stopped putting, I'm not repeating information. I'll put it at the front. And then I would start putting C front. Like if it would ask me my address again, my wife's
uh,
name, at the C first page, it's very wasteful, very inefficient. I mean, if you just took out all that extra work, I'm sure that 10-page document's 8 pages, right?
yeah. And that's what our software does. Your name's always your name. I don't care what page, I don't care how many times it shows up. You enter it once, it goes everywhere. And that's that.
And how does a financial advisor use it? He's filling out some basic data and this populates the fields?
Well, actually, they're taking data from their CRM. They've captured data already. They already own it or have it, and we pull it and suck it out and put it on the form for them. So we
And
pre-fill the form.
and for any company that has, I don't know, what do one of these companies have? 100 different forms?
Oh yeah, yeah. The average. So there's different types of firms, but like a broker dealer is the one who employs a bunch of advisors. They typically have at least 100 forms, sometimes 300 forms. We have insurance companies that have 500, 1,500, 2,000 forms. Mutual funds usually have roughly 100 to 200 forms. The custodians, like Charles Schwab has 180 forms in our library. I found out Fidelity Investments, I don't know how many we have of theirs, but they have 2,000 forms across their business. It's unreal.
And when they come up with a new form, what work do you guys have to do on the back end? Or does it just accept fields and know that it
Oh
goes
no,
through new?
we put a lot of human labor into it actually.
Oh, every time.
Yeah, we're just now rolling out AI that's going to automate that better, and by end of year, eliminate the human part. And our humans will become QA and data quality experts in other areas of our business. We're not, I never get rid of people.
Yeah.
Um, it's more just the form has to be built with every field. And the killer thing is, if I ask you this question, like you just said, go to your doctor's office, why are you entering your name over and over again? Even if it was online, why are you doing it? Because they didn't define it the same way every time.
Mm.
Have. We built a definition. Our definition's huge. It encompasses over 1.2 million fields. So now when you look at a new account form at Charles Schwab or Fidelity Investments, we have designed every single field to be the same across those forms. So even it doesn't even matter which form you're filling out, your first name in your database goes there every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So you say you don't let people go, you don't fire people. What about
Well,
bad people?
that's not fair because
Yeah, what about bad workers who've done bad things or lazy? There's got to be some of that happening in 23 years in business.
yeah. No, I shouldn't have said that exactly because we had to do layoffs this year, and I had to let go of 4 people who were friends who were in our company for 8 to 15 years. It was a super, super hard decision. When I was meaning it was when the team members are awesome and they're working hard and their jobs change, I want to help them
Yeah.
transition every chance I get. I love my team. But I'll tell you a transformation I went through in December of last year as a founder of my company. I started asking, I just saw this meme on Facebook or something. And it's like, what did your 18-year-old self want when you were 50? And I turned 50 last year. And I thought I wanted to be Fortune 500 CEO, of course. Why did I give up on that dream, Joel? I didn't. I gave up on the title.
Mm,
I didn't give up on the desire to be the caliber and quality of that level CEO. But was I being that quality? I asked myself that and I started saying, what are those qualities? One of those qualities, they're hired by shareholders and board of directors and accountable to their compensation for those people. And so that's what I said. Well, let me act like a hired CEO and look at my company differently.
mm.
Oh my gosh, that was transformative.
You were
I didn't
letting
even
too many
expect.
things slide through.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking the other way, not just thinking they'd work themselves out. And one of the things, the first things I did is I said, what are the revenue streams on my products? If I'm going to double revenue, which product is going to do it? And then I started looking at the cost to operate these products. And the product we put 80% of our time and money into, we spent double the cost for the revenue.
Oh, so it was a losing.
Totally a loser. Yeah. And so that's what led to the layoffs because I realized we're upside down. We've got two people focused on this product that's not going to go anywhere. I couldn't repurpose them, mainly because I need to shift into sales, not product development, if I'm going to grow this company. And so we had to make those really hard decisions in the product team to let four people go so we could reallocate to the sales team and drive growth, but also stop stop fiddling with things that weren't going to grow on their own anyway. Stop
And,
putting so
and
much effort into it.
if you did have a board of directors, they would have been calling you out on this. So you had to artificially tell yourself, what would I do if I had a board?
Yeah, basically.
I asked myself
Which
that many times when I was running my company. I go, if it wasn't just up to me, how would I be letting down the company? And I think that
yeah.
helps us when we don't have a board to ask ourselves.
Yeah, and it also tells me I should have a board, right?
Hmm. Did you form one?
We have our board just with the shareholders. So no, I don't have an outside board. And I've been thinking really, really hard about that this year and
Hmm.
how to structure it and what to do with it and who's going to be on it. And meeting people that are super high quality that, you know, leaders of industry that I think I might want to ask to be on my board.
Yeah,
I just have to get comfortable with the cost of having that type of person on the board
yeah,
and what it means. So we'll figure it out. But yeah, I think by the end of this year, I'm going to form a formal board of directors, maybe at least four people plus ourselves,
yeah,
and then have more accountability to what I want to do.
yeah. That would get you more in line with that Fortune 500 CEO thing that you thought about when you were 18.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, what would you be doing if the ideas that you have that you see you're on the path and this thing's going to take off and you get some ridiculous offers? Let's say 2 years from now, you get an offer that you really are looking at. You go, I'd never imagined that. And let's say you pull the trigger. What would you be doing the next day after that closing?
Well, first, I'd have to work for another year or two. I mean, they need me. I don't think anybody's going to take what we do without my vision. And so I have to see if I'm comfortable with the idea of working with somebody else for somebody else in that capacity. And that, there's some things out there that might be interesting. Some companies that I might really consider that with. It's a
Okay,
really,
so
really
two
hard
years and one
question.
day.
Yeah, I get it. I know. I'm just saying that it's a really, really hard calculus because my identity, my purpose, my joy, my fulfillment is coming from this work I'm doing. And if I'm going to give all that up for a pile of money, number one, my new job is to figure out how to make that money work for me. And two, I've got to now figure out a new identity and purpose in life. And I've done coaching before. It's not my thing. I'm good at it, but emotionally, it's not what I want to do. I love solving these problems. I'd probably get more focused on AI technologies. But my wife and I agree, even if I took 6 months or a year off, I would be itching to start the next thing.
Yeah.
I would probably at least go buy a car wash, to be honest, just because I love cars so much and I could be around them. I something. But I don't really like consumers, to be honest. So I don't want a consumer business or retail business. I don't know, man. Maybe
And
I'd
you're not
become,
going to like the complaints about you missed a spot on my car.
yeah. Oh, look, I just joined a new group that is investment focused, and I'm going to start meeting venture capitalists and hedge fund managers. I love that stuff too. Not that I've ever taken that money myself, but I love the idea of investing in others and helping them grow. So maybe that's what I would do. And
Yeah.
if somebody really wants to buy my company, it has to be a lot of stupid money. so that I can do stuff like that and say, yeah, I'll go put 1 million into this company or 500,000 into this company and help them grow, use
Yeah.
my expertise and lessons to be on their board and maybe work in their company part-time. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what I would do.
Well, I went to a dinner with a bunch of EOers and just recently, and it was all people in the room who'd exited their companies. And some, we went around in a private room and shared the figures, and some were ridiculous. Like that's a lot of zeros. And without exception, the great majority of that room said that they went into a depression after
Mm.
selling their company for the reasons that you said. This was their identity and their purpose. And now one day they woke up and it was gone, whether it's the day after they sold it or the day after they stayed on for a little while and then after that it was gone. I think the exception were those that found something before they sold it. So it was already like this little thing they were looking at or working with or trying. So before you even consider one day exiting, I think it would help, from what I learned from these guys, to have something going on the side.
The truth is, I don't want to exit though. I want to
Yeah.
build a multi-generational company,
Uh,
and we're doing everything we can to grow. Right now, my revenue is diversified. My biggest customer is something like 17% of my revenue.
oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But you said
And
multi-generational. You got three kids, but they're little.
yeah,
You think they'd want to be doing this?
we'll see. We'll see. My oldest is beyond smart and very science oriented. I could see him going after this process of software and development. And look, it's not like, hey, just come run my company. They'd have to prove it, want it. They'd have to maybe work for somebody else first and come in and
Mhm.
earn their way up. But
Good.
it's not necessarily just my generation. I mean, I have team members. If they want their kids to come through this,
Mm,
and I'm going to hire future employees and maybe their kids come into this, but multi-generational in the sense that I want this company to last 100 years. And part of the reason for this is there was a study shown that the greatest wealth ever built is primarily done through multi-generational companies. I mean, think Ford Motor Company as an example.
yeah.
And that's appealing to me about building long-standing wealth where I came from nothing, my family came from nothing, and nobody has had inheritance and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I want to be able to do that. I want to build that. So yeah, and we're on this precipice of really massive growth with just a couple of key customers, which tells me I've got to duplicate that times 10 so
Mm,
that I don't have one customer being 60% of my revenue suddenly
yeah.
or something like that. But yeah, and to me, that's also a defense mechanism for selling out. It, on the one hand, if I have highly diversified revenue, it's more appealing to buy my company. But on the other hand, I don't necessarily need them to buy my company.
Yeah. That's the beauty of building a great business is that the more the value, if you could do both, if you could build tremendous value, so there's this upside that, if I ever needed to, I could sell it, that takes so much pressure off. But
Yeah.
then at the same time, if it's so attractive because you've built such a great company to run, that's the best of both worlds. You could just not sell it. And now you've got it for as long as you want it. I love it.
Yeah.
So man, this has been fantastic. I've learned a lot about you, including things we didn't cover, and there's still many more, but let's cut it here and talk again in the future because I'd love to hear what the next that precipice and see what you're going to take this company to. And maybe we'll be talking hopefully in a few months or in a couple short years and see what you've gotten this business to. I'm excited to see what you do.
I appreciate that, Joel. I think I've told you before, if you're coming into Austin, Texas, I got a room for you to stay in.
I
Come hang out,
appreciate
buddy.
that. Likewise,
Yeah.
likewise. You've been here before, and you can welcome to stay here with us. All right, Rich. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing so much. I think we got an opportunity to get inside the mind of a CEO who's been doing some amazing things, and it gives us perspective, and it gives us, something you said to here or there along the way. You've said something that probably clicked, and it helped me a lot with the different things you shared. So I know you've been providing value in our time together.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it and honored if I touched anybody.
You did. Thanks, man.